On Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026, and I'm calling to order the Placerville City Council meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Here.
Councilmember Clarici?
Here.
Mayor Gottberg?
Here.
Vice Mayor No?
Here.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Here.
All right, moving on to item number 3, ceremonial matters. 3.1, a proclamation of the City Council recognizing the 250th anniversary of the United States independence. Whereas on July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, setting in motion a grand experiment in self-government founded upon the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas on July 4th, 2026, marks the historic semi-quincentennial, the 250th anniversary of the United States, inviting all communities to reflect on our nation's rich history, the diverse individuals who built it, and our shared journey to form a more perfect union. And whereas the story of the city of Placerville is deeply intertwined with the story of American expansion and innovation, arising from the humble banks of Hangtown Creek following the 1848 discovery of gold and evolving into a critical engine of commerce that fueled the economic growth of a young developing nation. And whereas Placerville served as a vital link in the nation's westward expansion and unification, becoming an important transportation and commerce center for travelers, freight, and communications crossing the Sierra Nevada. And whereas the city played a significant role in the support of the Comstock Lode and served as a key station along the historic Overland Trail and Pony Express routes that connected California with the rest of the United States. And whereas generations of Placerville residents have contributed to the enduring American ideals of hard work, civic engagement, innovation, and service to community, state, and nation. Now, therefore, I, Nicole Gottberg, Mayor of the City of Placerville, do hereby proclaim July 4th, 2026 as Independence Day and the celebration
You got it the first time.
in the city of Placerville, and encourage all residents and visitors to gather in unity to celebrate 250 years of American liberty, to honor the unique local history we contribute to the national tapestry, and look forward with confidence, hope, and purpose towards our nation's future. All right. Would any member of the public like to comment on item 3.1? All right, I see none. We will bring it back to item 4, closed session report. City Attorney Ibrahimi.
Thank you, Mayor Gottberg. The council met in closed session on 2 items today. There was no public comment in advance. On item 1, the council provided direction, and on item 2, there's no reportable action.
All right. Moving on to item 5, adoption of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. We're going to move on to item number 6, announcement presentation to the public. 6.1, brief comments by the City Council, starting with Councilmember Yarbrough.
Yeah, so Wednesday, went to the preview of the fair. It was great. We had a good time, nice dinner. Got to see a lot of people that, of course, we don't see for a whole year. Got to meet one of our new and upcoming senators, Alexander Duarte. So it was a nice event. Enjoyed it.
Carter?
Yeah, I spent all weekend at the fair. Fantastic job. Amazing fair as always. Thank you to the fair board for that. Also, I visited the new Rubicon exhibit at the gallery down the street. So highly recommend anybody that's interested in Jeeping and Rubicon and the history of that to go check out that exhibit.
All right, Vice Mayor No?
I have nothing to report.
Clarici?
I too went to the fair preview, and it was nice. All the cute animals and things, and the people. And then I went to the Rubicon exhibit as well, and that was very interesting. And it was funny because I actually knew some of the old timer guys like Mark Smith and them from way back. So that was fun. And I actually could talk about this later in the agenda, but since we typically have more people here at the beginning, we hosted the SACOG board meeting here last Thursday. We got a chance, the SACOG members, commissioners, had a chance to visit our apartments over on Mallard. They're just about ready for occupancy, I understand, with any luck at all. And we were able to tour some of the units and some of the facilities, and it's really very nice. And then we had our meeting here at Town Hall, and I got to regale them with my personality, and gave them a little history of the town and where we are, where we're going. So it was all good, and the town showed really good, and I want to thank staff who was responsible for either providing me information that I was able to use as part of my chat, and just making sure that everything worked really well for that event. So thank you.
And I have nothing else to add at the moment, so we'll go to 6.2. Receive an update from the Placerville Fire Safe Council on the May 2nd, 2026 Wildfire Safety Day event. Mr. Acuna.
Good afternoon. Thank you, City Council and staff, for your time again this afternoon. I'm here to present you with a final update on our 5th annual Placerville Wildfire Safety Day, which was held on May 2nd this year. Before I go any further, though, I would like to thank David Zielinski, who is in the audience, who is our president, and who was one of the 2 people personally responsible for the Placerville Fire Safe Council being formed and for its continued existence today. The other one would have been Council Member Patty Borelli. I would also like to thank a couple of folks that were also on the committee and were instrumental in making sure that the event did come off. And that would be Steve Allen, who was vice chair, and Rowena Plazinski, who was our finance and planning director. Both of those folks just gave tirelessly of themselves. As we do every year, we got to be just a part of the 681 Main Street for several weeks as the event came together. And also, as is with many volunteer organizations, the call goes out for help the day of the event. Nobody ever actually responds to that email, but everybody absolutely shows up that day. So I would also like to thank all the Placerville Fire Safe Council members that took time out of their weekend to come and help out like they do every other year. Some facts, you've got an update, and I'm just going to present this for the general public so that they can understand what the information that you also had. This year, we estimate that we had approximately 400 attendees at the event. We had 12 address signs built, which is one of the things that Steve Allen has been promoting for several years, and the demand for the signs continues to grow, and so we'll continue to show up at events, and Steve does an excellent job in doing that. Out of the $3,000 that was budgeted this year for the event, we spent $2,040. So we are actually in line with previous year's events. You have a little bit more information on that. So we're right where we would like to be. And next year, if you actually own 681 Main Street, the cost will go down by $300 because that was the rent, unless you're going to charge us rent. But,
We have a budget to balance, Mark. No.
Understood. And we are here to help you. I would also point that one of the neat factors that I use for crowd participation is that they serve 210 Rotary dogs out in front this year. The Placerville Fire Safe Council would like to thank Chief Cordero and Chief Gates and all the members of the El Dorado County Fire District for their unwavering support of this event over its 5 years. If you were there during the day, the tremendous amount of equipment and personnel that are committed by the County Fire District is what makes the event. We were reminded again this year that the ladder truck and the flag is what drew most folks in on us. So we'll have to ask for that again next year. But huge thanks to them for remembering many years. I'd also like to thank and show our appreciation to the city department heads, Mr. Nick Stone and Dennis Nishihara, for their continued assistance this year. Their employees, as always, are tremendous help in making sure the event is a continued success. I'd like to offer some comments on what our thoughts are from this year and some ideas on what we may do next year. It was obvious that our May date, it was in conflict with a number of other county and specifically wildfire safety kickoff events for that weekend. So the committee is making a recommendation to the Fire Safe Council to move it to April 24th next year. I have to make some final comments, but I got some big thumbs up for some various fire folks that said, good, we weren't sure we were going to be able to be there next year if it was still going to be in May. So that's one thing that we intend to do. This year we had a couple of new attendees, Sierra Wildlife Rescue and the Primo Supply Company were there, and they were a huge success. Both of those tables had a constant flow of traffic in front of them. And one of the things, if you ever want to have a fundraiser, be sure to bring some wild animals. The sleeping possum and the hawk and the owl were huge hits. They outplayed Smokey Bear, as a matter of fact. So we appreciate those agents, those two organizations being part of our event this year. And then moving on, and based on the interest that we saw from the Primo Supplies fire hose and pump displays, that we need to have more hands-on displays so that the homeowners can come in, they can actually see. For example, we had the fire hoses and the pumps from the experts. We'd also like to be able to have the actual home hardening supplies and resources like vents, fire-resistant siding, and et cetera. So that we hope to add anywhere to up to 6 additional displays from various supply organizations here in the city and the county. We think that will really add to the foot traffic. Again, I'd like to, on behalf of the Placerville Fire Safe Council, thank all the agencies that, again, committed their staff this year, their staff and resources. It was difficult with our date for some of them to be able to be there all day, and we totally understand that. So, but it's through that continued commitment that we were able to successfully send out that message. Because even if you didn't show up, we have a fairly significant advertising effort that went out, and it's got all that important information on it, who to contact and how much brush you clear away from your home. So with that, I would just ask if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? None from up here.
Okay, thank you again, and thank the City Council for their continued support. It's very important. And just so you know, that we look forward to seeing you. Placerville Fire Safe Council will again appear at National Night Out on August 4th at Hangtown Village Square. We will have a booth, and we will also be making address signs again. So, thank you for all your help.
Thank you. Would any member of the public like to comment on item 6.1 or 6.2?
Hi, David Zelensky. I can't resist a microphone. Also, I want to thank the Cannabis Committee. I'll take the opportunity here. They make all this possible, and I appreciate their ongoing support. So, I've encountered possums in the wild, and they're not cute, like that. This was the cutest thing I ever saw in my life. So Sierra Wildlife Rescue, what a job they did. And if you want to see a cotton ball of a possum, they're the ones to go see. So it was a great event, and Mark's right about the 2 additions were very big for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? All right, I see none. So we will move on to item number 7, consent calendar. Would any member of the council like to pull any items from the consent calendar or ask questions? All right, I see none. Would any member of the public like to comment on our consent calendar?
Sue Rodman, good afternoon. I would like to comment on 7.13, the Cannabis Committee. If it weren't for the Cannabis Committee, we probably would not be able to put on the wildfire safety event because they fund it every year. So I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to them for their great support. And I personally think this should not have been in consent calendar. I think it should have been out in the general agenda. But I'll give you my comments. They're the same as they would be no matter where they were. To thank the Cannabis Committee for their ongoing support. And they supported the city very well this year too, if you notice.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Trainer. I was going to speak at the public comment, but we're recognizing that what I was going to speak about is actually on the consent calendar in terms of the Cannabis Committee. So I guess my request is that we could hold off on that vote until you hear from our comments, but that's up to you. I'm a volunteer with NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, and I'm a volunteer with Clubhouse El Dorado, and I did send a letter earlier that you probably would have gotten today. And we didn't realize that the list had already been made, so we are requesting to see if we could get any grant money to continue the Clubhouse. Our program manager will be talking also, which can give you more specifics about what we're looking for money for. But for those who are not familiar with the Clubhouse model, it is open 5 days a week from 9 to 5 with a workday focus. It's recognized as a high-value investment because it's cost half of a traditional clinical model due to its reliance on peer support and member-run tasks. It has been open for all holidays with meals and connection and provided 60 social outings on evenings and weekends via a grant to decrease isolation. And I know that people often talk about the homeless that are hanging around downtown, and this is one of our solutions, is having a place for people to come that have mental health issues to get a place of connection, to get a breakfast and a dinner, and I mean a lunch and a dinner to bring home. And while our membership has grown, we are, as many people probably are, facing extreme funding cuts and became aware of the Cannabis Committee. And so what we were hoping to do was request a grant from the Cannabis Committee to continue funding our daily meal and nutrition program, which includes teaching members how to plan, prepare, and serve healthy breakfasts and lunches. And many people with serious mental illness experience food insecurity. There's rising grocery costs. They don't know how to cook maybe. And we also help people find jobs. And so anything that they're doing at the Clubhouse allows them to find jobs. And I know that I wrote some in my letter, but Alicia, either she can speak now or later, can tell you some more about numbers for that. And we've had a lot of community partnerships to help offset food expenses. Donations from Feeding from the Foothills, MORE, which works with developmentally disabled and intellectually challenged adults, has been very helpful for us to access local resources like that. We had a previous grant that provided money for fresh fruits and vegetables and pantry stables and kitchen sanitation supplies. We are in the process of redoing our kitchen from a grant from the Women's Fund. So we are accessing a lot of different community sources. But the majority of our funding was from the County Mental Health Services Act from the state, and now that has changed, as you know probably, and many services will not be covered by the money we'll be getting from the Behavioral Health Services Act. So we are asking if there's any chance that it can be delayed and add something to your Cannabis Committee dispersal. We would love to have a bit of that funding as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Are there any other comments on our items on our consent calendar? Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Alicia Shepard, and I am the Program Manager of Clubhouse El Dorado. I am here tonight to share the impact Clubhouse El Dorado has had on our community and to discuss critical funding challenges that threaten one of our most successful programs. Clubhouse El Dorado is a nonprofit psychosocial rehabilitation program serving adults living with serious mental health conditions. Since opening our doors in August of 2024, we have grown to more than 350 members. We average 25 to 30 members per day, and our members have engaged in over 30,000 hours of meaningful participation and recovery-focused activities. One of our most impactful services is our culinary program. Since opening, our culinary program has prepared over 15,000 meals to individuals living with mental illness, many of whom are also experiencing poverty and food insecurity. Unlike many meal programs, Clubhouse El Dorado provides a continental breakfast, a nutritious lunch, and a to-go style dinner. But our culinary program is about much more than just food. It serves as a vocational training program where members learn food safety, meal preparation, customer service, teamwork, and other transferable job skills that help prepare them for employment and greater independence. Since opening, Clubhouse El Dorado has helped 94 members create resumes, supported 135 members through the interview process, and has helped 95 members secure employment. We have supported over 44 members in returning back to school, assisted 69 members with housing resources, and connected more than 273 members to critical community resources. In addition, we provide transportation for members who otherwise would not be able to access these resources. Due to the changes in the Mental Health Services Act, funding, and the loss of anticipated revenue or sources that many behavioral health programs were counting on, our culinary program is facing a substantial funding shortfall. Without additional funding, this program, which has supported hundreds of Placerville area residents, may be forced to close as early as October. Tonight, I respectfully ask for your support in helping preserve this vital resource for Placerville residents through programs like the Cannabis Community Benefit Program. Thank you so much for your time and for your commitment to the health and well-being of your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on our consent calendar?
Almost talking against my own self-interest, but one of my other hats, service officer of the American Legion and Marine Corps League, one of our veterans, I'll cry a little bit, terrible eviction, living with his dog in the car. He embraced everything that the clubhouse has to offer. Today, he's an employee with a real job at El Dorado Disposal. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on consent? All right, I see none. I will bring it back up to the council.
Explain how the cannabis committee works.
Thank you very much for those very thoughtful comments. We have God, I'm going to talk about process to people that need something. But we have a process, and unfortunately, we're not in that. We respect that process. They go through their numbers. They come up with this list of items. It's not that we're heartless, and I've been to the clubhouse, and it is an amazing place, and it certainly serves an important purpose, but we have to be careful if we short-circuit processes that are put in place and we hand people responsibilities and they do their jobs really well. They go through all these things. All I can suggest to you is that this doesn't do you much good today, but get in the queue and walk it through the cannabis committee, because we have invested in them and they have done a tremendous job over the years suggesting very worthwhile efforts. And so, once again, I know it's pretty thin gruel when you need something desperately, and I'm talking to you about a process that will not happen for another year for you. So anyway, thank you very much. Those comments are very poignant.
And I will say, I've visited the clubhouse twice also and have a lot of respect for what you guys do. And I would definitely encourage you to go. Those meetings are noticed. They're on our website for when the Cannabis Committee meets, and definitely go talk to them. I think that they would be really interested in what you guys have to say. So,
All right. Do I have a motion on consent?
I will move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right. I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter.
aye.
Councilmember Clarici.
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Aye.
Vice Mayor No.
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg.
Aye. All right, we are going to move on now to item number 8, public comment, non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action and under specific circumstances. You'll be reserved to 3 minutes. Would anybody like to comment on items that are not on our agenda?
Good evening. Ruth Michelson, business owner, 352 Main Street. I first wanted to welcome our new interim city manager. Thank you very much for stepping up and filling in. And thank you also very much for reaching out to our merchant president, Alan Ming, and showing interest in merchant concerns. We so appreciate it. It really meant a lot. And we're looking forward to you coming to one of our second Wednesday meetings when it can fit in. I wanted to take a minute to talk about Golden History Days, Wagon Train. It was so good this year. The Rezacs did a great job heading that committee, and well attended. And the street had just a huge variety of different vendors. And then afterwards, there was the Davy Doc Weiser Memorial, which was well attended and very meaningful. So just wanted to acknowledge that. It's a lot of work to pull that together, and I'm so glad it's not me anymore. The other comment I wanted to make about street events, and I know it had been, well, maybe I should start a different way. I think there's two different outlooks about street events. And one outlook that many of us merchants have is that it's community building. It really makes Placerville, in many ways, what it is. It's a place for people to gather and to enjoy themselves, enjoy one another, and have us have a reputation of being a fun town. And people still to this day will come into our shops and say, gosh, never knew you were here. We've had our shop for 11 years. And also, it reminds people that when they have guests from out of town, to bring them downtown, and also when it's time to buy a gift or a necessary item from the hardware store. So these events, whereas for some merchants may not be a great business day, many of us understand it's the big picture. And I just really want to emphasize that we are building something. That's what Placerville stands for. And I know there will always be some merchants who moan and groan that they didn't on that particular day maybe have the business they would have hoped for. But I don't really think that's what it's all about. And I just have a few more seconds, so let's see. Really quick, maybe. I guess I just wanted to say I feel badly, and I understand why the clubhouse can't get money this year, but with the Navigation Center closing March 27th, we're going to have a big gap of local resources. So I hope for them they can find the funding they need. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else would like to comment on non-agenda items?
Back again. I want to give a shout out to the City of Placerville Police Department. I was searching for a homeless veteran. His phone was jacked up. He wasn't communicating. He wasn't cooperating the way I wish he would. Go to the upper room and his usual check-in places. Officer Robinson found him for me. And she may have to find him again, but the phone's still jacked up. But maybe tomorrow he'll go to the upper room and get a free phone. Good fellow, a former resident of the Nav Center, and hopefully we can get him housed. There's a lot of options, but I just have to get my arms on him 3 or 4 times, and then we can finally get him housed. And El Dorado County's Veteran Service Office has been great to work with on this too. But anyway, thank you, City Police, and they knew who he was. He's a real person to them. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Any other comments on non-agenda items?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Macy Sherman, and I represent City of Placerville workers with Local 39. I wanted to introduce myself, and I also wanted to meet with the City Council and speak about the impact of the recent reduction in the workforce and the deficit in general. We've been meeting with the city, with City Manager Joe, and with Natalie, and they've made a really good effort to be transparent, and I do appreciate that. We've been meeting regarding the city's significant deficit and the plans to address it. In an effort to reduce the deficit, the city has decided to lay off 2 maintenance workers. In the course of discussions with the city, we reviewed the expenditures and we discovered there are several tasks and the duties of the maintenance workers that are currently being contracted out to private companies. And the cost of these contracts are more than the cost of one of the maintenance worker positions. So maintenance worker total compensation is approximately $149,000 a year. The cost of these contracts combined for this year is $165,000, almost $166,000. For next year is $181,000. The tasks that include landscaping services, pest control, plumbing, janitorial services, pressure washing. These are all tasks that could reasonably be performed by maintenance workers within the city. And while we understand the need to balance the budget, I asked the council to consider the broader impact of outsourcing the work on the community. Public servants exist to serve the community rather than generate profit. They take pride in their work. They are often part of the same community in which they serve. They also allow for greater oversight and accountability as they are directly managed by the city. They retain knowledge over long careers, and their turnover is much lower than contracted employees. Rather than reduce the workforce, I think the city should invest in the community, should be expanding the tasks that the workers perform and eliminating the private contracts. It's my understanding, I am new to this assignment, but it's my understanding that over the course of several years, a lot of tasks have been moved away from the maintenance workers and placed in private and contractors. So in short, public servants make the community better and cost less. Cuts to the workforce who dedicate themselves to improving the city should be the absolute last resort, not something that we rush into in the first effort to address the deficit. I asked the council again to invest in the community during this time of financial uncertainty as we work toward reducing redundancy and steering the city back to prosperity. So, thank you.
Any other comments on non-agenda items? All right, I see none. Did we have 8.2 written communications?
No, Madam Mayor.
Right. I had 9 items pulled from the consent calendar. We had none, so we're going to move on to item number 10, ordinances. 10.1, zoning ordinance amendment 2604 to amend Title 10 of the Placerville Municipal Code to establish regulations and permitted uses for low barrier navigation centers in compliance with State Law AB 101.
Good evening, Council. Hold on, I pulled up the wrong thing, so if you just bear with me one moment. Sorry. I apologize. It's hard working with one computer.
Carol, this is Joe. I can read my notes if you just want to answer questions.
Okay, because I have the next item pulled up, and so I'm trying to get back to my email. I have a bunch of windows open. If you want to kick it off and then I can answer questions, that'd be great.
Okay, here we go. Good evening, Mayor Gottberg and members of the City Council. Thank you for hearing this item this evening. I'm here to present Zoning Ordinance Amendment ZOA 26-04, which implements Program B4 of our certified 6-cycle housing element. This amendment brings the city into compliance with state law, which is AB 101, and California Government Code sections 65660 through 65668 by allowing low barrier navigation centers as an allowed use by right in appropriate zones. Low barrier navigation centers are housing first, service-enriched shelters that provide temporary living facilities, while case managers help connect people to income, benefits, health services, and permanent housing. They reduce barriers to entry by allowing partners to stay together, personal possessions to be stored, pets, and providing privacy through partitions or private rooms. Why is this before you tonight? Our housing element, certified by HCD in December 2022, committed the city to this update by January 2023. In December 2025, HDC sent a letter of inquiry asking the status of the program before and several other programs. Our December 23rd response outlined our plan to complete this in 2026. This ordinance directly fulfills the commitment and helps protect the city's housing element compliance, which is critical for continued eligibility for state funding. What the ordinance does, it adds clear definition of low barrier navigation center in section 10-1-4, creates new section 10-4-21 with objective standards, a clinical service plan, participation in the county's coordinated entry system, and HMIS, and a focus on rapid transition to permanent housing. It also sets a 30-day completeness and a 60-day action timeline. It adds the use as permitted by right, subject to those standards, in the CBD commercial, highway commercial, and business professional zones. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 19, 2026, and unanimously recommended approval via Resolution PC-2026-06. We have also established the required legal notice and find the ordinance statutorily exempt from CEQA under Government Code Section 65661, Parent B, and as a ministerial action. Staff recommendation: find the project statutorily exempt from CEQA and introduce and waive the first reading of the attached ordinance. This is a straightforward but important step to meet our state obligations and to support regional efforts to address homelessness. Carol is happy to answer any questions.
Right. Are there any questions from the council? No. All right. I will open the public hearing if there are any members of the public that would like to comment on this item.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
No, not a question. Opening public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Ruth Michelson. I read the staff report. I thought it was very, very good, and I'm very appreciative that Carol Kendrick has taken care of this, especially since the state had written a letter saying that you're, my words, not in compliance and have fallen behind. And I think it's very commendable that she's catching these loose ends and bringing the city into compliance. And I think especially since we are losing our navigation center, at the old juvenile hall, March of 27, and I believe maybe have a 1.5 year gap until something is built at the jail. And what's being built at the jail is actually, from my understanding, only for women and children. So that still leaves a gap of the men who are homeless. So, I don't know what the solutions are, but having this in place at least gives the opportunity of the possibility of some assistance in appropriately located locations. So I just want to really commend Ms. Kendrick for picking up this loose piece and bringing it to fruition and getting the city into compliance. Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry. Good evening, Kathy Lishman. I know this is something that we have to do, and there really isn't a choice, but the way it came about from the state dictating how we have to do it is not right. It's allowed by right without discretionary approval. And it could be in the business and professional zone, in the central business district zone, in the highway commercial zone, in the commercial zone, and zones that allow multifamily in non-residential zones that allow multifamily. When the city worked to try to figure out what to do in the past and came up with one solution to have one, I'm wondering how many of these navigation centers would be allowed in the city. There's no limit, and so that's a good question. Housing first is really important. Moving people into permanent homes is really important. The facility has requirements, but who monitors it and who runs them? I know this is not a project. This is what happens all the time now, something the state wants us to do, but there's no project, so we can't really discuss the details. The report says this aligns with the county's existing facility at 299 Fair Lane and supports broader regional homelessness solutions. So why are we responsible for the regional solutions? I know I'm preaching to the choir but I just have to say these things. The one that's up at 299 Fair Lane, how successful has it been? And is it a low barrier navigation center, or is it a traditional center? Does the county have to follow Program B4? The city's hands are tied. I understand that, and I understand the need. And if these are successful, it would be a wonderful thing. But very few people know about this. The way all of these things come forward, and our hands are tied, and very few people know about it until a project comes in, and there's nothing that can happen. There's no suggestions that can be made. There's nothing to make it better. It's detrimental to a small city like Placerville to have to go to this extreme to solve a problem that's been around for a long time and needs to be solved. I agree it needs to be solved, but I just have to say my concerns for the city. Thank you.
Hi, David Zelensky again. When the navigation center first came about, I thought to myself, what a dumb idea. You know, all the drugs and alcohol you want, this is going to be horrific. It turns out that working with the navigation center has been a real blessing for me. Yes, the drugs and alcohol are put in the locker outside, but they actually have rules. Your behavior will get you kicked out. Some of my buddies have been kicked out 5 or 6 times. So the fact that there are rules has made me feel better. And people who seem unhousable are currently housed and wouldn't have been but for this. I'm not saying this is something that's going to work for everybody. My buddy that Officer Robinson found, he was there a year and he still isn't housed, and that happens. But it takes a lot of different solutions to make things work, and so it's a tool. Haley Armstrong, who's the boss up there, she's been a tremendous ally. And so I am optimistic whatever comes, and if something with the same philosophy as what Volunteers of America has been using on this particular NAV center comes back, I think we'll be able to work well with them. It's proven to be very good with very difficult people that they're managing. And the fact that there are rules on behavior, consequences from behavior, means that in spite of the low barrier, that's a low barrier to get in, but you have to behave to stay in. And so and let's face it, the NAV Center is in the city of Placerville. It might be a county facility, but we all know where it is. So I think we will survive this. I wish the state didn't tell us what to do all the time with no choice. I appreciate that comment. But I'm optimistic based on experience. And I do have a lot of experience working with the whole NAV Center as it has been. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on 10.1? All right, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council.
I have a question on the resolution, I guess. 10.1 resolution ordinance, the ordinance number. It has at the bottom all of the, we had ayes and noes. Yeah, I guess it's page 7. And it says today's date, which makes sense. But then the next one is August, or adopted the 24th day of July, which is a Friday, if I looked at my calendar and got it right. So two things. Should that have been the Tuesday? But then we canceled that meeting in the consent calendar, thank you. Consent calendar. So should it be August 11th, which would be our next scheduled meeting? Or am I totally wrong, and am I right? Oh, I like it when I'm right. Okay.
You are correct, Councilmember Clarici.
Okay, well, so I assume it would come back at the 11th then. Okay, great.
All right, any other questions? Motion?
I will move the item with the change to the ordinance to note the correct date for the second reading to August 11th from July 24th.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
No.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No? Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, we're going to move on now to item 10.2, Zoning Ordinance Amendment 26-03 to amend Title 10 of the Placerville Municipal Code to establish minimum densities and modified development regulations for multifamily residential zones R2, R3, and R4, and amend conditional use provisions for multifamily residential zones R2, R3, R4, and R5 in compliance with the Housing Element Program A5. Ms. Kendrick.
I know how much
Good
everybody likes.
evening, Mayor Gottberg.
You want me to read it,
members
Carol?
of the City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As you know, the city adopted its sixth cycle housing element in 2021, and HCD certified it in December 2022. Program A5 committed us to amending our multifamily zones R2, 3, 4, and 5 to establish minimum densities, reduce minimum parcel sizes where needed, and remove regulatory barriers to multifamily housing. This program was originally due by October of 2023. And in December of 2025, HCD sent us a letter of inquiry asking for an update on Program A5 and other items. We responded promptly in late December, confirming our progress and commitment. Tonight's action goes towards fulfilling that commitment and helps us maintain our housing element compliance. What this ordinance does, it establishes the minimum densities to prevent underutilization of higher density zoned land in the R2 by having a minimum of 4 dwelling units per acre, in R3 to 8 dwelling units per acre, and R4, 12 units per acre. It also reduces the minimum parcel areas in R3 to 5,000 square feet and R4 to 4,500 square feet. This is a practical step transition that allows for duplexes, triplexes, and small apartment buildings on standard urban lots while protecting neighborhood character. This also removes the conditional use permit that allows for single-family dwellings in multifamily homes, and it revises professional office allowance to require a mixed-use component in R3, R4, and R5. These changes align zoning with the development capacity already analyzed in our housing element and support the Housing Accountability Act by creating clear, objective standards. The Planning Commission held a duly noticed public hearing on May 19, 2026, and unanimously recommended approval with PC Resolution 2026-07. Staff determined that the ordinance is exempt from CEQA under the Common Sense Exemption 10561B3 and Ministerial Projects 15268. As it does not authorize new physical development, but simply aligns standards with the existing general plan and housing element analysis. So tonight, staff recommends that the City Council find the ordinance exempt from CEQA, introduce and waive the first reading, and adoption on the second reading is scheduled for the first meeting in August. Again, this is another straightforward but important step to protect our ability to meet our regional housing needs, maintain local control, and continue accessing state funding. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from the council? I see none. So I will open the public hearing for item 10.2. Would any member of the public like to comment on this item?
Good evening. Good evening again, Kathy Wishman. I wanted to understand, I really liked that chart. That chart was excellent. It really summarized it well. And I really understand about having people wanting to build a single-family home in a multifamily zone property, how that could be detrimental. But on the 60% coverage, that was one of the things in there. Does that include the parking? And then there's a 40-foot height. It says it could be 3 stories. Is it 3 stories by right? Because we don't have many projects that are 3 stories. And then, so most of the flat land is already developed. I wondered if the slope can be taken into consideration, since it seems like something that the city would actually have control over. Would the projects go before the Planning Commission for review? It doesn't seem like this is talking about ministerial acts or approval by right. And then the last thing on the lot size reduction, I was wondering why the R4, which allows for more units, has a 4,500 square foot minimum, and the R3, which has less units, has a 5,000 square foot minimum. So it was just confusing to me that the one that allows the most has a smaller lot, and the one that allows less has a bigger lot. So anyway, or minimum. Thanks.
Are there any other public comments?
Ruth Michelson. You know, this is our current reality, right? We all know this. Wages haven't gone up, and housing has skyrocketed, housing costs. And any of you who have grown children who'd like to enter the housing market, you know what a tough situation they're in. And this is not just here, it's really everywhere. And seniors who want to downsize, service workers. I think you all might know that 51% of the people who live in this county do not live here. They have to commute in because they cannot find housing here. That is very sobering, 51%. And that statistic comes from Housing El Dorado, Frank Porter. So we are in dire need of more housing, more workforce housing. I guess we don't call it affordable because it's all relative, right? But I think anything that we can do, I commend. And again, I mean, all of us can probably tell stories of when we were young. And I mean, I bought my first house when I was 26 for $85,000, 85 in Concord, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Took over a VA loan. You know, my kids live in the Bay Area. Multiply that by 10 if you want to get a house in the Bay Area. But it's not so great here either. So anyway, I support this. I support us having more workforce housing, being a merchant downtown, and knowing what a shortage of workers we have. It's why restaurants have shorter hours, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There aren't enough people to work because they cannot find housing here. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments on this item? All right, I'm going to close the public comment or public hearing and bring it back. Did staff have any answers to questions if you were able to hear them?
Thank you, Mayor. I am actually looking into the minimum lot size, and I'll double check on those to see if there's any clarification, and I can update that as part of the second reading.
Okay, great.
And I would like to make note that the same thing I saw, whoa, we're throwing things back here. Same thing I saw on the previous agenda item is also true on this one. So it'll have to be changed from the 24th of July to the 11th of August for the second reading.
All right. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I will move.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, we are going to move on now to item number 11, public hearings. 11.1, consider adopting the proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 operating budget and capital improvement program budget as presented. Ms. Tornacasa.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gottberg and City Council members. Today we are recommending your approval and adoption of our fiscal 2026-2027 operating and capital improvement program budget as presented. Some quick background. The city is required to adopt an year. The adoption of tonight's resolution and budget documents meet those requirements. So this is a 6-month process. Meetings kicked off in January, and they're comprised of the budget team, which is all department heads and the city manager. And part of that development process, it has City Council holding 2 special budget workshop meetings, one in April and one in May, where staff receive input from both the City Council and the public. The Measure H&L Sales Tax Committee also meets twice, first on April 8th and then second on June 3rd, to discuss the proposed street, sewer system, and water system projects that should be funded and constructed. The initial public hearing was held 2 weeks ago on June 9th, and no changes have been made to the budgets. We present the same revenue and expenditure assumptions as discussed during that City Council meeting. As discussed during that meeting, the general fund has experienced a structural deficit the last 3 years, where revenue has remained relatively flat and expenditures continue to increase by 8 to 10%. Due to the financial constraints, staff has scheduled our first strategy meeting to address our structural deficit, which will be held on August 12th, with the goal of presenting City Council further cost-saving recommendations this fall. Regarding the budget documents, so the attached budget documents are the same format as in past years. They include multi-year summaries of all aggregate operating revenue and expenditures, as well as detailed expenditure summaries for all city departments and divisions. The total operating budget revenue is projected at $30 million, while expenditures are $26,800,000, leaving a budget balance of $3.2 million. But it's very important to note that of that balance, nearly all of it is Measure L funds, which is $3.06 million. So, and those Measure L funds are strictly being funded for CIP programs, and some of those projects include the Placerville Drive Bridge replacement, Placerville Drive bike and pedestrian facilities, our annual storm drain compliance, and the purchase of a 2026 crack sealer. The other CIP funding is also included in our operating budget expenses for the line items for general fund, Measure H, water, and sewer. So as I wrap up, I want to highlight that we are going into fiscal year 2026-2027 with all operating funds balanced, and in some cases, a small surplus, including the general fund with a surplus of $156. The Water Enterprise Fund with a surplus of $32,000, and I just want to let you know we were in 2 years of back-to-back deficits for the Water Enterprise Fund, and then the Sewer Enterprise Fund with a surplus of $67,000. This was all possible, I want to thank, because of the budget team, the committee members, city council, and the public for their engagement and the work that they put into this budget. So that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? All right, I see none, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on item 11.1. Would any member of the public like to comment on this item?
Sue Rodman, member of the Measure H, Measure L committee. And so I do take an interest in how the city is doing budget-wise, and I think that $157 in excess is just absolutely amazing. And I think the city as a whole is doing a much better job than the state or the county or a lot of other states seem to be doing, and our budget team and the city council is to be congratulated.
Good job. I didn't really follow the whole process, but it sounds good to me. Because I know these are difficult times. I just kind of had a question, because I know that it has to do with budget, I believe, and it has to do, like when you're buying 681 Main Street, and I know that $1 million was from a grant you got in 2022 that you've been holding on to, and then the $500,000 is coming out of some discretionary fund. And I just, well, wow, that's a lot of money to have in a discretionary fund. I don't know about that discretionary fund. And I just wondered, does this budget talk about how much is in this fund? That's all. Thank you.
I can answer that. We are just wrapping up our financial statements and our financial audit for fiscal year 24-25, and that has a $4.2 million general fund reserve, and so in some of that money, about $2 million of that is unrestricted. We have a timely use of funds for that grant, which will expire next year, so we are going to borrow from the general fund balance.
Yeah.
To help with the purchase of 681 Main.
It's basically our rainy day fund, right? You have emergency funds in case you need to do something in your house. That's our emergency fund.
Yeah, the discretionary amount, and I'll actually be presenting the financial statements at the next city council meeting, but generally, you should have at least like 3 months of payroll in a rainy day fund to cover your payroll. So we're like right at the lowest level of reserves. About $2 million.
I would like to say congratulations to the department heads and the staff and the council to get to this point. And I also want to compliment Natalie on the presentation. Today was a very brief presentation, but the other presentations that she has given have been very informative and a lot of information and easy to understand, so I appreciate that.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. If there's no more public comment, and bring it back to the council.
I'd like to comment as well. Thanks to everyone who was involved in this. It is not easy work, especially when you're sitting there and splitting things in half a lot. I think it's important for the public to know that we run the same, in fact, a bigger city, arguably a bigger city today than was being run 20, 25 years ago, and we do it with 20 fewer employees. Now, there's only so long you can do that before things break, but I think it's important for the public to understand that we have been doing this for a while, and you know, the staff deserves our utmost respect for having to work and run the city with 20 fewer people than they were 20, 25 years ago. So, and the public should know that as well.
Yeah, I just want to make another comment about 681. You know, previously, we were looking for a public safety building that was going to cost $20 to $40 million. You know, this current staff, we've come up with solutions to do that with $1.5 million, keep everything in-house, not have to ask for tax measures or bonds to be able to do those things. And so I just really want to thank everyone for living within our means, making things work during these hard times. And I think everybody's doing an excellent job with what we have. Thank you.
And in that regard, too, I think one of the things that we'll discover as we move forward in that process is, you know, when we can finally move this thing into that thing and unload this thing, as well as potentially City Hall, it's going to be addition by subtraction, because especially this building has untold amounts of deferred maintenance work. If you look at it, you can tell that it's deteriorating. I'm assuming that when they built the Purity Market, nobody thought, like 100 years ago, well, probably in the 30s or 40s they built a Purity Market, that this thing would still be standing today. And so, because it's just basically a Quonset hut with some square bits put on it. And there are other assets too, because it was mentioned in the articles, and we talked about it before, but since it was brought up, I think it's important to talk about it again. Once we get PD into 681, the fire department's going to move into PD, or they're going to work to do that. And so they'll be getting a better facility. We will not have that responsibility anymore. We will unload some other responsibilities. And I think eventually the net of it all is going to be a net positive for the city in terms of money, because we won't have to deal with this. And whatever we end up doing with this building, or whatever gets done with this building, of course, that's for the future.
All right. If there's no further comments, I think we need to take action here, right?
I'll move staff recommendation on 11.1.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to item 11.2. Consider establishing the appropriation limit for fiscal year 2025-2026 and determine compliance with Government Code Section 7910. Ms. Tornin-Casa.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gottberg and City Council members. So yes, this is a routine item that is actioned annually. The GAN limit is a constitutional spending cap in California that restricts how much tax revenue state and local governments, including school districts, are legally allowed to appropriate and spend each year, and it's adjusted annually for changes in population and inflation. So it was originally established by voters as Prop 4 in 1979. It was authored by anti-tax advocate Paul Gans. That's how it gets the GAN limit name. And the law basically caps government spending. Because the limit is not fixed and the cap gets adjusted each year, that's why we have to bring this to council. Bring this item to council annually. The appropriation limits for fiscal year 2025-2026. The GAN limit is calculated to be $33 million, and the general tax proceeds subject to the limit are $8.8 million, which include basically all of our taxes like property tax, sales tax, TOT tax, as motor vehicle in lieu tax, as well as a proportionate amount of interest. So that still leaves $24 million of unused appropriation limit, and that includes my presentation. Let me know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on item 11.2. Would any member of the public like to comment on this item? All right, I see none, so I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll move the GAN limit.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, We are going to move on now to item number 12, discussion action items. 12.1, consider authorizing the city engineer to submit a grant application for the Sacramento Area Council of Governments 2026 federal funding cycle call for projects for the System Performance Program for the Canal Street Phase 1 Cumberland Road to Cougar Lane project and Canal Street Phase 2 Cougar Lane to US Highway 50 project, and authorizing the city engineer to execute all grant documents and commit to a timely project delivery requirements. Ms. Savage.
Thank you, Mayor Gottberg and council members. This is a repeat item. You already heard the same item back on March 24th, but since that time, staff received new information and we had to change course. So as mentioned before, SACOG is releasing a call for projects for 3 new types of federal funding that are available to local agencies. The System Preservation Program call for projects was released first. That program focuses on maintaining and extending the life of key roadways. After SACOG released additional information about the program, staff met with SACOG and learned that this particular funding program would not approve funding for projects that need full pavement reconstruction. It would only fund projects that need minor resurfacing and grind and overlay types of treatments. Back in March, the City Council approved that we proceed with an application for the 2 Canal Street projects. But as I'm sure you're probably aware, the pavement on Canal Street is in very poor condition, especially on the northern half of the street, and we are expecting to need to perform full-depth pavement rehab. We met with SACOGs to discuss this, and they advised that we instead apply for the System Performance Program, which focuses on improving how the existing transportation system functions. Projects would include roadway and safety improvements, bicycle and pedestrian connections, and technologies that help manage and improve reliability. Just last week, we had a pre-application meeting with SACOG to discuss the 2 Canal Street projects again. Based on the discussions we had, the project seems like a perfect candidate for the program, and the conversation was very optimistic, especially considering the bicycle and pedestrian elements of the project, the proximity to the school, and the use of the school as a regional community center. Also, SACOG recently released a resolution for local agencies to use as their template. The resolution included some very important provisions regarding the timely use of federal funds, the local agency's commitment to project delivery, and the local agency's commitment to providing local matching dollars. The resolution that is included with this item tonight is based on the SACOG template. I did want to mention that based on the current construction cost estimates, we have planned the use of Measure L as the matching funds on the project, which will of course go through the Measure H&L committee for approval at the appropriate time. But we do have enough money planned, and that's the important part. Draft applications for the System Performance Program are due on July 17th, 2026, and if approved, staff will proceed with the application process. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? Great. I see none, so I'm going to go ahead and open 12.1 to public comment. Would any member of the public like to comment on this item?
Sue Rodman, Measure H, Measure L Committee. And yes, Canal Street really does need our help, especially when you go down to Cumberland. It's just, it's almost 4-wheel drive, not quite, but you do want to take your sports car on it. It's pretty tough. This is great news, really. So I think it's amazing that our engineering department is outstanding. They have just done an amazing job keeping up with all these changes and stuff that have happened. And so I would definitely support doing this.
All right. I see no further public comments. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back up to the council.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
I will second.
All right. I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right. I'm going to move on now to 12.2. Pro-housing designation program, staff analysis and request for council direction. Ms. Kendrick.
Good evening, Mayor Gottberg and members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present on the Pro-Housing Designation Program tonight. I would like to provide a brief overview and request your direction on whether the city should pursue this designation. The state's pro-housing designation program administered by HCD rewards cities that go above and beyond basic state housing law to accelerate housing production. Jurisdictions that earn at least 30 points across 4 categories that include favorable zoning, faster permitting, lower development costs, and financial incentives receive priority scoring and additional funding in competitive state housing and infrastructure grants. Placerville is already in a strong position. After a preliminary self-assessment on our zoning ordinance, ADU program, housing opportunity overlay, and density bonus provisions, and in our housing element, we've identified 18 points. With targeted feasible policy updates such as impact fee deferrals for affordable units, density bonus enhancements beyond state law, and priority processing for lower income projects, we could realistically reach the 30-point threshold. In instituting those other policies, we can identify those, and we have 2 years to complete them. And so that would help us in submitting our application. Why pursue this? The designation would give us a real competitive edge. It unlocks access to the pro-housing incentive program, which potentially awards, with potential awards for Placerville estimated at $750,000 to $1.2 million or more, depending on our final score. These flexible funds can support affordable housing, preservation efforts, and preparation of the 7th cycle housing element. It also strengthens our grant applications for programs like AHSC and infill infrastructure grants. This time I want to directly address our location in a high fire severity zone. Infill development and modest density increases in already served areas can actually reduce wildfire risk overall. Any new policies we pursue will explicitly require full compliance with our strong 2025 fire code amendments and WUI standards. The programs even offer enhancement points for integrating housing production with hazard mitigation, something Placerville is well positioned to demonstrate. Staff recommends that the council direct us to move forward pursuing the pro-housing designation, and we will return to a future meeting with a complete application package, including any recommended new policies or ordinances for your review and approval. This effort aligns with our strategic plan goal to maintain and improve quality of life through updated planning documents while preserving local control and enhancing our community's future. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from the council? All right, I see none. I will open up item 12.2 for public comment.
Good evening again, Kathy Lishman. It's interesting that on all of the agenda items tonight that you just have had very few questions. I know this is appealing, there's money involved, there are things involved, but we've already lost a lot of local control, and why give up more? To qualify, jurisdictions must maintain a certified housing element. That's a good one. Adopt or commit to policies enacted or proposed with implementation within 2 years. Is that signing a blank check? And then you had to have a score in 4 categories: favorable zoning and land use policies, acceleration of housing production timeframes, and the reduction of construction and development costs. Does that cost the city in the long run to reduce those and provide financial subsidies or incentives? What if we can't do that? With policy updates such as expanded by right approvals for missing middle housing. So now we're talking about housing that's really the affordable housing, not, not just the apartments, but impact fee deferrals for affordable units. Density bonus enhancements beyond state law. State law is already getting so restrictive. I don't know why we would agree to do that. And It seems like the state would be getting more control over our land use. This is almost like a bribe. They're dangling a carrot with strings attached. In my mind, enough is enough. Under environmental proposed policies such as expanded by right approvals can be constructed to maintain appropriate environmental reviews for projects that require it, while minimizing redundant review for ministerial projects. I don't really know when there's ministerial projects what say we have in it. We have an excellent community-driven general plan. Our general plan was composed and written by the community. Little by little, it's being taken out of our hands, and the community doesn't even know or understand what's going on. If you were at the last Planning Commission meeting or watching it, the neighbors relating to item 9.2 were just devastated and confused, and the public, look at how many people are here tonight. The public used to be more involved than it is now. Just because we're the only city on the Western Slope doesn't mean we have to cover all the housing and overbuild. What will the future look like? Placerville has done a good job of developing housing. This program would expect us to go above and beyond state housing law. What more will the state demand of us? This is not the way to protect our small, rural, historic Sierra foothill town. And what is the downside of not applying for this program? Thank you.
Any other public comment on item 12.2? All right, I see none, so I'll bring it back up to the council.
I would just say that I agree with Ms. Lishman that, as we all know, there's not a single dollar that comes from the state that doesn't have strings attached. And so if we do decide to move forward with this, I would like to get an honest accounting of what we are agreeing to and what limitations we're putting on ourselves by doing this. I really want to explore the downside and not only the upside of this, just so we're fully informed about what we're signing up for, because I do worry about all the items that she mentioned about, ceding control, ceding, land use decisions and all these things. So if we do decide to do this, I would really like to get an honest accounting of what the downside of it is before we move forward.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to know, if we were to go forward with this program, what kind of staff impact would it have when time, how much longer is it going to take to process things, the upside, the downside of that part of it? Because the last thing I want to do is implement something that's going to take more time for our staff to try and do.
Right.
So.
I'm in favor of being pro-housing. I like more housing. I want more housing. I like the proposed policies in here. And I think if there's a means by which we are in a structural deficit, we can get funding from the state for doing things I would like to do anyway, then we should get money for our next housing element by moving forward with this.
I would agree with that. But I do agree that we should know more about that. One of the reasons we don't ask a lot of questions is we ask a lot of questions before we get here. We meet with staff. If I see something, I talk to staff. So, when questions, sometimes I will ask if I think it, it's like, oh, that's something that maybe, usually we're doing inside baseball stuff, like does tab A fit into slot B appropriately? So yeah, I know for myself, I usually know most of what I need to know to make a decision. This thing with the state of California is concerning. I would agree with you 100%. But if you think we could not act on this, and it won't change that at all. They're gonna continue. They've made it quite clear. And honestly, some of the changes I like. CEQA started off as a perfectly good disclosure law, passed 50 years ago, 40 years, in 70 whatever, and it got turned into a cudgel to stop things from happening. And there was enough lawyers on the planet to make it happen. And anytime you decided to do anything, grab CEQA, sue somebody, delay a project, and if you could delay it long enough, someone would walk away. So some of these streamlining things I actually enjoy because I've been on the other end of that. We don't have a brand spanking new courthouse because like 3 people decided they were going to sue, and they lost. They lost the lawsuit. They lost on appeal. They delayed that long enough. So now we have a courthouse where you can't drink the water because of the pipes. And it's too darn small for a county of this size. So we've seen some of the practical applications of things like that. I am intrigued by this. I think it could potentially be a very good thing for the city. I agree that we need to find out a little bit more, just sort of get some more ideas, and that's fine. But if we think we could not act on this and the state of California is still going to do what it wants to do because they've made it quite clear that's what they're going to do. So anyway.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with the deferral of impact fees for affordable projects, that's already state law. It would just be codifying it. And what I'm asking for is programs that you think that are worthwhile to go for. I did look at some of them and immediately knew, like, reducing parking would probably not be a good fit for the city of Placerville. But as Councilmember Clarici said, the state is going to be, passing a lot of this stuff down to us. If we become eligible for funding, it can completely fund our 7-cycle housing element, but we could also use it towards programs like first-time home buyers programs, providing accessibility improvements to lower-income residents, doing senior home repairs. So there could be a lot of benefits to the residents, but again, I just had suggestions. But everything is listed in there. If there's things that are a no-go for the council, I understand that. And like I said, based on my knowledge of Placerville, I saw things that just wouldn't fit. But if you've got any suggestions, I'm happy to hear them.
Yeah, of those 5 bullet points that you mentioned, I obviously would be not interested in reducing parking in appropriate areas. I think that's a no-go. But the other 4, I mean, they all seem like they're missing middle housing is super important. It's something I'm interested in for sure. And the other ones, like you said, I think we're already doing the fee deferrals and the priority processing. And so, yeah, those last 4 bullet points are all workable in my opinion, but I would be a no-go on the parking reductions.
Anybody want to make a motion, or do you want me to?
I think she's just looking for.
Yeah. Direction. Go.
Well, are we?
Direction, yeah.
I mean, I guess here are we directing? If we're doing that, we're directing staff to pursue pro-housing designation item 1, option 1.
Yeah, and I think. Do you have enough direction, Ms. Kendrick, to move forward?
And I agree with that parking restriction also. We don't want to reduce parking.
Yeah, so it sounds like we want to move forward with pursuing pro-housing designation, but we do not want to, as part of that, pursue bullet point 1 of parking requirement reductions.
And daylighting some of the restrictions that were in some of the downside of this program for our local community, also highlighting some of that when this comes back to us, I think would be good to know.
Okay.
All right. Everybody on board with that? We don't need a motion. Nobody's dissenting on directing staff. Okay. All right, we will go ahead then and move on to item 12.3. Planning Commission update regarding historic district preservation recommendations. Ms. Kendrick.
Good evening, Mayor Gottberg and members of the City Council. Tonight's staff report provides an update from the Planning Commission regarding their work regarding historic district preservation recommendations. This follows your direction at the October 22nd, 2024 City Council meeting and the City Manager's follow-up memo dated January 7th, 2025, both respectively shown as attachments B and D in your staff reports. In that memo, the Council identified 4 recommendations for the Planning Commission and provided clear priorities. Recommendation 4, a systematic examination of the current standards for review was designated as the highest priority. Recommendation number 1 is to improve community knowledge of the historic districts was a second priority. And recommendations 2 and 3, which were updating the historical resources industry and considering ordinance revisions, were deferred until recommendation 4 is complete. The Planning Commission has focused their efforts accordingly. Oh, sorry, just clicked out of it. On June 16th, 2026, the Planning Commission held a special, actually they had a special workshop regarding this item on the second Monday in June, which was followed up at the June 16th, 2026 meeting to finalize their letter. Chair Chris Keeney transmitted an update to you as attachment A summarizing the progress on recommendations 1 and 4. On recommendation 1, improving community knowledge, former Commissioner Amy Lepper led a review of the city's historic preservation webpage. Staff has developed an interactive GIS map of the 3 historic districts, and I actually want to do a shout out to one of Melissa's staff, Wes, who was instrumental in doing that. Next steps include better website navigation, frequently asked questions for property owners, informational flyers, and signage at district entrances. The Commission strongly encourages that the Council prioritize signage installation as an effective direct outreach tool. On recommendation 4, the systematic examination of the standard for review. The Commission has reviewed the Secretary of Interior standards, city documents, and practices from other jurisdictions. Commissioner Sylvester maintains a comprehensive spreadsheet for reference materials, and at the special meeting on June 8th, Chair Keeney presented a draft decision-making framework, which commissioners are now reviewing and editing with plans for public comment at future meetings, with a target completion date of October 2026 or as agenda time allows. This work aligns with the duties outlined in Resolution 7896, which reestablished the Historical Advisory Committee, shown in Attachment C. Because the committee has not yet been reactivated, the Planning Commission continues to serve as the primary advisory body on these matters. Staff's recommendation is to provide any additional direction to the Planning Commission if desired and receive and file this update. This effort reflects the Commission's commitment to a more consistent, transparent, and education-focused approach to historic preservation while respecting the priorities you established. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from the council? All right. I will go ahead, if there's no questions from the council, I will go ahead and open it up for public comment. Would any member of the public like to comment on this item?
Ruth Michelson. So that all sounded good, and I appreciate all the work that's been done. But some things that weren't stated specifically, and I've looked into this and had some conversations with some folks, is the direction that this is going in of somewhat watering down our historic districts. And I know that Councilmember Carter, when you were on Planning Commission, I know you worked hard on getting some of this historical district work refined, defined, cleared up. And, you know, whenever you have a commission, like it's made up of individual people who come and they go. They have their term, they leave their term early, as Mayor Gottberg did when she ran for city council. It just happens. And since the Planning Commission, I'm kind of a little bit developing these thoughts as I go, but Planning Commission is made up of individuals who have different outlooks. Some understand the importance of the character of Placerville, the importance of historic districts, and some do not. Some just don't. Some feel like, you know, because developers show up. I've been to plenty of planning commissions or listened in on planning commissions when developers or homeowners come in and complain and whine about what they need to do because they live in a historic district. And somehow this is all new news to them. I don't understand why realtors don't explain to them, you're buying in a historic district, and here are some of the requirements. But somehow they come in like it's a brand new day. They've never heard about this. They don't want to do the wood windows or the whatever siding or whatever the deal is. So I think a fundamental decision has to be made by City Council. Are our historic districts something important or not? Is this central to the character of Placerville that we maintain those historic districts, or do we allow them, the requirements to get so watered down because developers and homeowners have come in and complained because they were unaware of the requirements? And the scuttlebutt that I hear from people who would know is this is to appease some of those complaints. And, you know, yes, there is no Historic Advisory Commission. I believe in 2015 is when it was disbanded. But is it time to have something like that, maybe for people who have the expertise, and there would be the continuity, and not just the personalities of people on Planning Commission, but people who would help with this type of reworking. I know my time is up, but I would really like you all to consider reestablishing the Historical Advisory Commission. Thank you.
Kathy Lishman again. I was interested in what Ruth had to say. And the thing that I was thinking is, in the past, when there was a big issue like this, it's more than just at a planning commission meeting, that there could be a forum in town hall strictly on that and invite the public. And there's just so many ways of doing something. And I just think inviting the public to come for a special meeting, not just a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting, would be in the best interest of our community. And it's not just for this topic, it's for a lot of topics. It's not just the people that you know that give you a call or meet you on the street and talk to you. It's what the town is interested in. Thanks.
All right. Any other public comments on this item? All right, I will bring it back to the council. I'll start here just because I think for me, the overarching objective is we have limited staff resources and time. We're in a structural deficit budget, and I would like to see less applications that have to go through discretionary review to the Planning Commission. So I would like to see something simple that we can do to reduce the amount of applicants, the applications for siding, windows, doors, paint colors that have to end up in front of the Planning Commission, because that takes a lot of our staff time to prepare reports, to go to Planning Commission meetings, to do all of that. I'm open to a wide variety of mechanisms by which to achieve said goal, but I just wanted to open with, from my perspective, that's the overarching goal of whatever direction we go in. With direction to the Planning Commission, that's what I would ultimately like to achieve.
Thank you. We had a really good workshop a couple years ago where we brought in someone who was very knowledgeable. And a lot of people showed up for that meeting, and we talked and talked and talked. And it was good talk. I mean, we had learned a lot of things, and it was valuable. My biggest issue with how this is implemented is that if you happen to own a home in the historic zone, which was, these things were drawn up, back in the 81? So they're, I got to do math in my head, 45 years old. And you happen to land in one of these places, but you have a home, and I hate to say this because all homes are cute and they're nice, and if they're older, that's great too, but they're of no historic significance. They don't represent any kind of profound historic architecture. And the one that got, there's been these situations, like for example on Cedar Ravine, I'll take that one for an example. If it's the Thompson building, yeah, okay, you don't have to be a rocket science to say, yeah, that's a historic building. It has a name. It's called the Thompson building. It must be historic. It's old. But then you drive down to Darlington and, we had, and now granted, I agree with you. People roll in here and say, I didn't know anything about this. And you're like going, don't give me that, because you probably did know. But they want to pretend like they don't. But they were being forced to go through the same process that the person that owns the Judge Thompson building has to. And you're sitting there going, I don't understand this. And I don't. And that doesn't mean maybe you jettison all requirements. But this idea, there's two things that I want to chat about. One is that we use this one-size-fits-all. And one of the things when I came out of that workshop, and I even suggested it at the workshop, and I thought it was going to be a thing, was to really go into the historic zones and say, yeah, that is obviously a historic asset that the city has an interest in preserving. That one over there, maybe not so much, and come up with a way of dealing with that. So that's the first thing. The other thing too, and I have this from personal experience. Now, I bought a house. I've mentioned this before. My wife and I's very first purchase of a house was over on Myrtle Avenue, over by the high school. Thank God it wasn't in an historic district. It's an old house. The middle of that house is over 100 years old. And then the bits on it are less that age. But it's still, most of what we bought was old. Wooden windows, the whole bit. I had weights and ropes. We didn't buy that house because we were thinking about buying a historic asset that needs to be preserved and loved and nurtured like some special plant. We bought that house because it was the one we could afford. And we could not afford a lot in 1986. We were just married. We had 2 kids. We could not afford a lot, and that was the house we could afford. And there's somehow this notion out there that if you happen to buy a house in one of these districts, that somehow you are committed to some sort of restoration project. And I think a lot of people buy these houses, they go, hey, I want to replace the windows because they are drafty. And then they go down the street and they find out they're in this zone, they know it or not, and then they're presented with this stuff. And I think that we need to be have a little bit more awareness of these things. Identify the historic assets, make sure we protect them, let everybody else fix their homes. There's also, I think, a certain thought process is that somehow if someone has an old house that they're going to turn it into some sort of chrome and glass monstrosity. When we added it onto our house, we tried to make the architecture work, but we replaced all those drafty old windows with vinyl. They look lovely from the street. No one would know the difference. So I think we need to have a little bit more discretion. I agree. We have to come up with a high and tight way of doing this because we do not have enough staff to deal with this stuff. And the Planning Commission gets dragged through these endless meetings because they have to split babies in half. So I think we should go back to the idea that we should identify the valuable assets and make them toe the line. And then kind of, maybe not have such high standards for old houses that happen to be in the district. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, John, on this. Definitely, one set of thought is you're in a historic district, everything's got to be historic. Well, it doesn't necessarily work that way. An old house is not necessarily historic, it's just old. One of the other things that everybody's going to have to start considering right now also is we live in the great state of California, and the great area of Placerville and El Dorado County is a high fire severity zone. And in the business that I am in, I am currently seeing clients lose homeowners insurance because of what their house is sided with, whether or not they have certain vents, whether or not they have enough clearance around their homes. And the current insurance companies that are still willing to do insurance in the state of California and in our area are now mailing out lists of you must have these items on your home to keep your fire insurance. And we need to be able to start taking that kind of stuff into consideration when we're taking into consideration even our historic districts, because the insurance companies don't care, period. Great, you're in a historic district? Sorry, we're either going to raise your insurance, drop you, or you change things via this list. So we need to start actually giving those lists and taking a look at that stuff with the Planning Commission in the areas that we're talking about with historic districts, and allowing homeowners to make these changes so they can not only keep their homeowners insurance or fire insurance, but also possibly get a reasonable price on their homeowners insurance and fire insurance. Because the insurance companies right now have no problem raising your insurance rates. I mean, I just got mine. It was raised $600. And I've had quite a roller coaster of just fire insurance, not the wrap, just the fire insurance. And since I bought the home over 6 years ago, I have seen $4,200, $3,100, $1,257 one year. Paid that in cash real quick before they could shut the door. And then now I'm all the way back up 2 years. 2 years after that, I'm back up to $3,100 for fire insurance. No rhyme, no reason, no algorithm they can explain. And last year and this year, they of course sent the list of, if you have these kind of windows, it's a better discount. If you have this kind of siding, it's a better discount. If you have, this kind of clearance around your home, it's a better discount. If you have these kind of eaves, it's a better discount. If you have this kind of roof, it's a better discount. Well, and if we're in a historical district and the Planning Commission and the Historic Committee, if there was one, was saying, no, you're in a historic district, you got to do this, this, and this, and it goes against those lists, well, now all of a sudden we're causing the people who do live in these areas to pay more than what they should have to for these insurance policies. So we need to really start taking that into consideration also.
Yeah, one of the major issues was our lack of a coherent ordinance in general. Just the Secretary of the Interior standards are, it's voluminous, it's difficult to navigate. And some of the things that I really appreciate that the Planning Commission has been talking about directly answer some of your questions. They've been talking a lot about contributing versus non-contributing properties. I love that idea because we all know there are properties in our historic district with metal windows and vinyl siding, and they've been altered so much from their original form that they're no longer contributing to these districts. And so, still pushing down that road of figuring out which of the properties are contributing to our historic districts and which ones are not would be a really important step. Now, the state does update periodically the Secretary of Interior standards, and they issue revisions. And one of those revisions that has been talked about at the Planning Commission is fire-safe materials, and having suitable replacement materials that do fit into an at-risk fire community. And so, for example, concrete siding that looks identical to the original siding. Some of these conversations have been had, and it's actually been issued by the government saying that these are allowed substitute materials in historic districts. And so really the challenge has always been, since my time on the Planning Commission, has been staff. It's really tough to add this burden to our staff. But like you said, a lot of these improvements that we could make to our ordinance would alleviate work long term, but it's going to require some work in the short term to make that happen. And so, they're doing really good work at the Planning Commission. They're really diving deep into all these these updates. And at some point, and I've since my time on the Planning Commission, looking at ordinances for other cities that have similar historic structures and similar historic districts to us, namely Grass Valley is the one that is my favorite. They really do a good job in their ordinance of making clear which properties will be protected and which ones don't matter. And I think that is really an important first step for us to alleviate staff time long term and to protect the structures in our historic districts that need protection. And so I love the way the Planning Commission is approaching this. I think is great, and I appreciate their efforts of continuing the things that we were working on when I was there. And let's just keep pushing down this road. Let's get a coherent ordinance that addresses these issues that we've just discussed. And I really appreciate the time and the effort that they have taken to continue this conversation.
Okay, I did watch that 2.5-hour workshop. So my question to you, Ryan, is how do we get to figuring out what's contributing and what's not contributing in each of the residential districts?
And it's an easy but also a difficult question. So there's obvious ones, the National Historic Register and State Historic Register listed properties. Those are obvious and easy. But there are a number of properties that are not on that list that are obviously contributing to those historic districts. And so it's really going to have to be an effort by either an outside historic preservation group like one of our local nonprofits that wants to take on that project and work with our planning on actually identifying, taking pictures so we know what they look like now. That's one of the things that the Planning Commission has discussed extensively, is actually cataloging what those properties look like today, because we have no idea, and they have been changed in a number of them without the city knowing. And so actually determining at a point in time, and a period of significance also is one thing that they've been talking about, just establishing a period of significance. So obviously a house today that was built in 1950 is most likely not contributing. 20 years from now, possibly it will be. But they've been talking about an era of significance, and also just finding somebody that's willing to take on, identifying those properties specifically, which ones are contributing, which ones aren't. And that's going to take some outside help to make that happen.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
No.
I have a lot to say.
Okay. That's one of the challenges I've seen in this process is there's always that moment where you say, and justifiably so, you have to find someone who knows. And then usually things stop, because that's not easy and sometimes costs money. When we were having the workshop, I happened to be sitting, because this house shows how long ago it was, Saragossa was still on the city council. And he was sitting next to me. I said, Michael, you and I should just grab a map of that, and that has them on the outline. You and I will drive up and down the streets, and we'll just do our first cut. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, maybe, whatever. And bring that back and say, this is our first cut. We have a decent aesthetic sense. We know the town pretty well, and have it be like that. And just, kind of put that stake in the ground. And if we want to have some folks that are more knowledgeable about the history part of it, then great, we could have them involved. But it's almost kind of like when we made the thing to go find some place that we ended up at the Midtown Mall, is that you can wait for something to be studied, or you just grab some responsible people. You have a great interest in this. I would trust you and Dave. I'm volunteering you to drive through these districts and do the yes, no, and maybe thing. I trust you. I think you're a reasonable person. I think you could do that. And then we would bring that information back, and then we could have a bunch of people go, well, you guys you were drunk when you did that, because that's crazy. But at least it puts a stake in the ground. You start the process, and then you could start to whittle away at this. And I think that would be the way to go. And I would be happy. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that in doing so, then we're kind of working backwards and then developing objective standards, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you. But yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Now you have many things to say.
No. It's, this idea of a historical advisory committee is an idea everybody likes, but no one wants to actually do the work. Yeah. We saw this committee, I think, start in 2011. It started, we didn't have enough people. We revived it, 14, 15, we had one person, nobody wanted to be on it. So that's my frustration with this is, everybody has all these great ideas for someone else to do, that no one actually wants to get their hands, roll up their sleeves, and do the work. Perfect example. On the list that Cleve had sent, we talked about a letter to the homeowners and the people in the district. How hard is it to write a letter? Here we are a year and a half later, nobody's stepped up to draft a letter. I volunteered to help with that. No one's come with me and say, hey, Jackie, let's do that. And so nobody was at that meeting for 2.5 hours where all the planning commission talked among themselves. It wasn't public input. The public wasn't interested. The public's not here. I have a couple people who are here every meeting, but there is not a whole bunch of people who said, let's go talk about that. Yeah, I want to do that. Let's volunteer to do that. Doesn't exist. Hasn't existed. That's the reality. I think that we have to push forward with some things. If you guys want to go take those pictures like was recommended and give the rough yes and no, I agree with John. That's a great start. I would support that. That would actually be doing something.
I'm going to apologize to Councilmember Yarborough.
That's great. So, but here, the Planning Commission gets these applications, and this is the direction they need. I thought we kind of, as a council, already gave this direction where we said if someone wants to come and they're going to do the same look and feel, that we were okay with the other materials. I thought we gave that direction, but when I watched that workshop of the Planning Commission, I didn't feel like they had that sense. I felt like they were still in the weeds, when they were saying, well, people need to justify why they can't do like for like, wood for wood. Well, the justification's really simple. Your house is better insulated with the new materials, so your electric bill's better, your fire insurance is better, you're at less risk for your house catching on fire. So I would like us to give some sort of, I'm gonna take a stab at this of what I'm thinking about, but to give the direction, this is, and Nicole and I had talked about this, what we would like to see is a more friendly process for the homeowners who come in and say, I want to replace my siding, my windows, my, doors, whatever, and I want it to look the same as it's going to look, but I want to use this other material. And let staff approve those things. If they're not making any substantive changes, we're spending a lot of staff time and effort and just spinning in the weeds and the dirt and everything with, come on, people, they want to improve their house, right? We've said here at the council level, yeah, we agree, We want to keep the same character, the same look and feel, but here's the reality of the historic districts. What they said over decades before we were sitting here is that we only care about what the front of the house looks like. They've been allowed to change the rest of their houses, inside, back, whatever, right? We can't turn that back. So what we've always been talking about is what the house looks like from the street view. And I've, at that workshop and everything, we're saying, if I'm standing on the sidewalk looking at the house, can you even see the difference between the new improved materials and what they were? And we said, no, you can't. You should let them do that. So let's let them do that. Let's direct the Planning Commission and staff to say, hey, when people come in with these upgrades that they want to do on these very common things that we talk about all the time, just let that be approved at staff level. If staff deems that it's, a substantive change, then take it to the Planning Commission and have that discussion. I mean, let's make this easier. Let's not keep spending so much time on things. They talked about color palettes. They wanted earth tone color palettes. I thought, well, that's great, except for the Victorians, which were pretty vibrant, so that doesn't really make sense for the Victorians. But come up with an approved palette that you want for these different kind of houses, which we have a list of what all these houses are on the historical inventory, the Victorian cottage, the Princess Anne, the, classic, approve what your color palettes are and just let staff approve that if they pick something that the Planning Commission's already said, hey, this is great, and not have a whole meeting over something that, we can basically agree on. So that's where I would like to see us, have the Planning Commission go ahead with, those sorts of things. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, and I would add to that. I mean, I'm kind of on the thought process of if we could at least establish a year that says, hey, if your title on your house is after 1935 or 1940, like, you do not have to go to the Planning Commission. You're treated like anybody else in the city that is outside the historic district because, like, your home does not have historic or contributing value. I think we would all probably agree to that. I feel that way. Maybe. And that's like one means by which to get some of these applications out. I mean, I'm open to get rid of the historic districts altogether. That's where I'm at. So I think, let people do more what they want to do with their homes and make the updates that they want. I don't think I have the votes to move in that direction, but that would get rid of our staff time. We wouldn't have to spend time trying to figure out contributing or not contributing. Like, we would treat everybody in the city the same. I live next to a historic home that is not in a historic district. Those people make updates to their house. It's a named house. It's, so it's like, I just don't want to keep spinning on this issue. I think we don't have a lot of members of the public. I have not heard from anybody that is not at this meeting on this issue ever, like in my entire term. So I just want to stop having the staff and the planning commission and spending all this time on something. And I think most owners of the true historic advisory, buildings want to upkeep their homes. They bought a National Registry house. And if we want to say it's already on our list, okay, we already have a list. We can say the ones that are on our list still have to go to planning commission. But if it's not on an existing list, I just want to stop with this whole deal. That's where I'm at. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you to a certain point. We definitely need to make this streamlined and make it very easy for the homeowners that, it's like, hey, look, I'm not trying to, take my house from being a box to being a octagon. It's going to stay the same. I just want new siding. I want new windows. I want a new roof. I want to change the paint color because paint color is old and peeling. So I want to fix my house up. I think staff should be able to go, yeah, sure, no problem. Let's do that. If they're going to go, okay, I want to make some physical changes, okay, draw those out, let's take a look. And if it's something that's all right, if that's a major change, all right, now we got to go to planning commission. Okay, great. When it comes to the historic districts, I asked this at that meeting that we had back when Michael was on the thing, and I asked the guy that was doing all the presentation, and the question was, so what makes a district historic? Is it the old age of the buildings? Is it the look of the buildings? Is it just random lines that people way back when decided to draw and saying this is going to be a historic district? And his answer was, well, that's kind of up to you guys. Okay, great. That really didn't answer my question. My next question to that was all right, so if you have a historic district and you have 200 homes in that historic district, how many of those homes have to be historic for it still to be a historic district? 1, 10? 50%, 5%, and nobody can give me an answer on that either. I've done some research on my neighborhood because I have a really cool little neighborhood. There's some great little historic homes in there. There's some non-historic homes in there. There are some homes that were built in 1936 and weren't finalized until 1957. Some of those homes, I know for a fact, do not look the same because in 1936, they weren't doing stucco. Those homes are now stuccoed. So this is kind of where I get to the point. I'm like, okay, the historic registry, the historic district. I think if you're going to have a historic district, great, let's do it. But allow the people that live into each one of those homes to opt in or opt out. If they decide, hey, great, yes, I know I'm in a historic district, but I am opting out. Okay, I want to be able to do my home because I do believe in property owner rights. Okay, and who knows when these were drawn up who knows how long ago. And take a good look at the historic districts and try and figure out, all right, has so much changed over the years since these were drawn up? Are they really, truly still a historic district? I would like to see that answer too.
I have an answer to that.
Okay.
Because I was curious about the same thing. So I took the list of things on the historic inventory and I put in a highlighter how many homes are in there. So if you look at Spring and Coloma Street, they have a majority of the ones that are on the historic register. I couldn't find any in the Sacramento Street Chamber. Doesn't mean that there isn't one or two, but I couldn't find one. And, Cedar Ravine had a couple. Bedford, 2, 4, 6, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 8. So, I mean, when I look at Spring Coloma Street District, yeah, they've got a lot of historic homes on the National Register. Yeah, it seems to me I'm not sure I would want to get rid of that historic district.
Right, and I'm not saying to get rid of historic districts. I'm just saying to at least give the property owners that have, one of those houses in those districts that was built in 1957 the option to opt in or opt out of doing that. Mm-hmm. And even the ones that say have a house that was built in 1936 and finalized in 1957, is their house just really old, or is it just, or is it actually historic? Give them the option to say, okay, yeah, no, my house is historic. Because trust me, most of the people in my neighborhood, if they have a historic home and they like it to be historic, they're keeping it historic. So
that's what I'm saying. But the government doesn't need to be involved then in reviewing through the planning commission they're
Correct.
signing if we're trusting the owners
Right.
to make the decision for themselves anyway.
Yeah. And
so that's what I'm
completely
getting
agree
at.
with
Like, I mean, we can leave lines on a map. Sure, I'm getting at, like, I don't want all these people to have to go to planning commission for review. And I'm open to, like, we have an existing list. If we say, hey, you're on this existing list, you have to go to planning commission, everybody else doesn't. Or we say, if your built house title date is after 1930, you don't have to go to planning commission. If you're before that date, you do. Like, I'm open to all sorts of options here to get to the end goal of what I would like to see, which is less staff time. And I don't want any staff time spent on updating an inventory or figuring out, like, none of that. So I want to figure out a simple means ranging from maybe we keep the Coloma whatever historic district and we say the other 3 go away, and so we have 1 left. And only that district these rules apply to anymore, or we say if you're on the list, they apply, and everybody else no, or we say this is a date, they apply and everybody else no. But I just don't want to continue the process that we currently have. That's where I'm at.
Well, and I just want to mention, there's like 2 pages worth of buildings on Main Street that are not in a historic district, but are on this list. There's a lot of properties that are not in a historic district that are on the historic register.
And it is still part of our general plan to
protect,
to make a
yes.
historic district also. I mean, that is part of the plan, is to add one, not subtract. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I would not be, I mean, lines on a map are fine. Like I said, I think you can have the historic districts. People put some thought into it, they did whatever, you know. I just think that we need to be a little bit more focused on how we apply the standards within those districts and what houses and blah, blah, blah. The other thing too, and this is something that I've lived in the town a long time. I think there's always this sort of fear, which I'm not so sure is really borne out in reality, that people are going to do horrible things to old homes. That, that a person that buys an old home will turn into some sort of crazy person and decide to turn it into a chrome and glass monstrosity. And what I have seen in town, that people generally don't do that. They buy an old house. It kind of like I said, we own this old house over off of Myrtle, and we took some care when we did our thing. It has aluminum siding, 2/3 of it, because that's what they put on probably in the 40s or 50s. And we took some care, though, to make sure that it kind of looked cute, and it's a kind of a craftsman-y sort of thing, So we took some care, and I think sometimes people don't have enough faith in people that they will continue that sort of thing, and then unless you put all these restrictions on them, that somehow they'll go crazy. It's kind of like the whole we're tearing down old buildings in town, and there's this people are just waiting to tear down old buildings in town. And as far as in my time up here, the only building I can think of that was there's 2. One is the old Blair Lumber, which probably had some historic assets in it, nothing fancy because it was a lumber place. And the Dillinger House, when Wilbur wanted to make his parking lot bigger, and there was the Sites Brewery, which is kind of the one that everybody brings up, but that was done in the 60s, I think. Joe Stanselman got a permit. But otherwise, you don't see people tearing down old buildings in town just for the hell of it, and that's one of the things that I always I think we should have standards. I think we should apply them to some properties. But I think we should also have some faith in people that they're just not going to take these old things and turn them into something else. Because in my life, that doesn't happen very often. I'm a little hesitant to put a date on it because there are some interesting, there's that one strange Art Deco house over on Locust Street? On Clay Street, that's right, on Clay Street.
Right around the corner from my house.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It is cool, and it's Art Deco, so it's probably built in the 30s, I guess, or 40s maybe. Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Okay, well, going back to 1981 when they made this historic districts, because one of the things the Planning Commission said, well, there wasn't very much direction. Well, I think in 81 they were worried about people tearing them down, and that's why we made we didn't want everybody just going in and ripping down the houses. We wanted to preserve that. So that's why they did that. And so everything else subsequently is, as we're going, trying to make it. And we've done a disservice in some areas where we've held strict SOIs and people haven't done things to their house because they said it didn't make sense, didn't make financial sense, didn't make sense, and they let them crumble and fall. So, that's the other part of holding these strict historic standards that people are like, well, I can't afford it, so I guess the house just falls down and we didn't achieve what we wanted to in the first place. So,
Can we give some direction?
yeah, so the direction I think that I'm listening to is, we want people to be able to come in, and if they're going to do a like-for-like look in their districts, that we let staff approve those on that level. You guys are going to go do this wonderful thing and walk the city and take pictures, so we'll have an inventory, because, that's the other problem that staff has, right? People come in and they say, oh, that's the way it was. Well, if you take a picture of every property, you put it in a spreadsheet, now we have a baseline, right? And that's what they were talking about. So it'll be great to have that baseline of what the houses look like so that people can say, yeah, no, look, this is what it looked like in 2026,
So Ryan, I'm going to say this. Google Maps has already done that.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know when Google Maps, when the picture was taken, you can look whatever. I don't care how you do it. But, let's give that direction toward those, people who are coming in, their front-looking things, the things that we all are agreeing that, yeah, you're keeping the same look and feel. Let staff decide on that, okay, that's the same look and feel. It's a new material, great, approve it. It doesn't need to go through a whole review. If staff says, oh, no, you are changing that look and feel from the street view, we need to go through, great, go through those reviews. In the meantime, you guys are going to come up with a list and make a recommendation of contributing and non-contributing, which the public can then argue or not argue. We can have a whole conversation that hasn't been had about it, right? It's been talked in theory. It's a starting point. So thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
No, I'm happy to do it. I think, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that these changes that that are being recommended are going to require a change to our ordinance. And so, we're going to have this process through a change of our ordinance. And so I'm happy to do that. I volunteered in the past, and I'll make sure it happens now to move this forward. We just have to understand that this is going to require a change in our ordinance, because our ordinance now does not allow staff to do what we're recommending.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to do, because it is in the memo brought forward from the Planning Commission to us, is it mentions, hang on, that they don't have the resources to go out for grants for the signs. I would just like to go back to the memo from the city manager where he specifically said, for the signs to be taken on for a nonprofit, with a nonprofit with the interest in historic preservation. That was our direction. Our direction wasn't to ask them to go out for grants, but to reach out to a nonprofit, find people who are actually interested in this, and see if they'll help fund or they'll go get the grants. If there are people who are truly interested in what we are talking about, they're going to come stand up, right? So, okay.
And I will say, I was very discouraged that I was the only person at that special meeting. And so, to your point, it's just difficult because a lot of people talk about this, but then nobody shows up. And it was very discouraging that I was the only person at that special meeting of the Planning Commission.
Okay. Have we given sufficient direction? Staff, is Carol still listening? Do you feel like you have good direction from us?
Yes, and I'll summarize everything for the Planning Commission, but I'll also encourage them to watch this meeting.
Great, thank you.
No one should watch this.
All right. We are going to go ahead and move on to 12.4. Recommendation regarding award of contract for professional services, contract building official services, RFP results. Ms. Kendrick.
Can I just say one thing before Ms. Kendrick starts? We must give applause to Ms. Kendrick because she's not in a good way right now, and she is moving through this meeting like it was almost like a cruel trick that almost all the agenda items were for her. And I think we need to recognize that that she is doing yeoman's work right now. Anyway, proceed. You may go now.
She left. She's like, I'm
Yeah.
done with you people.
12.4, if you're ready to do that. Oh, we lost her.
I say something nice about her and she hangs up.
You want to read 12.4 then?
Yeah, let me.
Okay, 12.4.
I've got the notes.
Okay. Well, let's just read the subject. Recommendation.
I already did that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Good evening. Tonight, staff recommends approval of a professional services agreement with Urban 37 Incorporated to provide contract building official services for approximately 2+ days per week, plus on-call support. This will ensure continued permit processing, plan review, inspections, code interpretation, and strong customer service for our community. Our previous building official resigned in May of 2026, creating an urgent need for qualified leadership. State law requires a designated building official to administer and enforce building regulations. To maintain operations without delay, we issued an RFP on May 12, 2026. We received 7 responsive proposals. A team of staff evaluators scored them independently on qualifications, experience, scope of work, availability, references, and cost. We also completed a detailed cost effectiveness analysis. Urban 37 ranked the highest overall with an average score of 87 and offered the most cost-effective proposal at approximately $145 per hour with no additional travel or overhead charges. Urban 37 is proposing Dean, last name starts with a K, as our contract building official. Dean brings 23 years of experience in the industry and holds an ICC Certified Building Official certification, along with numerous other ICC certifications, including Commercial Building Inspector, Plans Examiner, Electrical Inspector, Energy Plan Examiner, and Master Code Professional. He has directly relevant local experience as a Building Inspector 3 with El Dorado County here in Placerville, plus extensive expertise in plan review, especially electrical and large PV solar systems. And he currently teaches electrical code courses. The attached draft resolution provides the agreement with Urban 37. It authorizes the city manager to negotiate final terms if needed, execute the contract effective June 29, 2026 through June 30, 2027, and approve minor amendments. Costs will be covered under budgeted funds and contract services. This selection gives us a highly qualified, locally familiar, and cost-effective building official who can hit the ground running and support our building division effectively. Staff recommends adopting the resolution. And it says I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Are there questions?
No.
Hopefully not. I will go ahead and open this item up for public comment.
Okay.
All right. I see no public comment on 12.4, so I will bring it back to the council.
I'll move staff recommendation. I'll second.
All right. I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to item number 13, council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado County Transit Authority,
We have not met.
El Dorado County Transportation Commission,
We will meet in August.
LAFCO,
We did not meet.
SACOG.
We did meet, as I mentioned before, and we talked about housing.
All right, Pioneer Community Energy.
Oh, we did meet. We got a summer readiness presentation from CalISO on the status of our power grid, and the state is well positioned to survive the summer weather. Really interesting. They're actually expanding our market to a regional model, so we'll be able to start getting resources from the entire western United States as opposed to being subject to only in-state producers. So that change is going to be coming over the next couple of years. That'll hopefully help with some of our power prices. And then we also finalized our budget for next fiscal year.
When are they going to let us do true up once a year?
Great question. I will ask.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Placerville Fire Safe Council didn't meet. Opportunity Knox.
Did not meet.
All right. Would any member of the public like to comment on item 13? All right. I see none. Item 14. Anybody have a request for a future agenda item? All right. I see none. City manager and staff reports. 15.1 Planning Commission vacancy verbal report. Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just a quick update to announce Planning Commission vacancy. Commissioner Amy Lepper has resigned, effective June 16th. So we opened the application period, which closes on Thursday, July 2nd, end of day. Want to thank Amy for her service and wish her family well. She served over 7 years on the Planning Commission. To qualify for the Planning Commission, you need to reside in the city limits or own a business in the city or property and live within the community region. The Planning Commission, commissioners get paid $75 stipend each meeting. They only meet the first Tuesday of every month. And there's more information on the city's website, but the application can be downloaded on the home page of the Planning Commission page. So thank you.
All right,
Let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions from the council? Any member of the public want to comment on item 15? I see none. Item 16, upcoming items. You can read those at your leisure. So we are going to adjourn the meeting at 7:20 p.m.